Hi, my name is Gray DP, and today we're going to be talking about another type of stripe pattern, or another series of type patterns that are based off of similar like what we did the previous time, where we had crossing stripes, but this time we're going to use a mask to be able to create various different types of patterns, starting with a ripple or a chevron pattern. Now, why you might want to do something like this, chevron and ripples are kind of very common. You'll see them in textiles. Again, like all these stripe patterns, I see them all the time in textiles, curtains, furniture, all kinds of things. Ripples in particular can be used a lot for crocheted afghans and stuff like that. So like if you're trying to do a blanket, you might want to do a chevron pattern with the blanket, because like it's a very classic design that you might find on a blanket, in particular like a handmade or hand crocheted one. So we're going to look at how to do those today, and quite by accident I discovered, by tweaking just a little bit the chevron pattern that I'm going to show you today, you can come up with all kinds of other patterns that are also very common in design stuff. So we're going to take a look at that. So let's go ahead and head over to Blender. Now I have the same pretty much setup that we've been working with before. Oop, it helps. Yeah, there we go. All right, I pretty much have the same setup. I've got the little mask here for the. This is just the mask for the cuff and collar. This down here is all the stuff that for the texturing on the shirt. So this is what we're concerned about with right here, like this little area right in here. Now I have the same basic pattern to be able to set up like the plaid. But I have it set on the diagonal, with one of the diagonals rotated by the 90 degrees, just like we did with the Argyle. So I have that all set up. I also have everything connected into a value node, which I need to make sure I give a value. Doesn't matter what value I give it, I just have to give it some value other than 0. And then everything else will work like we want it to. All right. It doesn't seem like a whole lot's going on. Bum 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 bum. Let me see. If I increase the scale, like say 10. Oh yeah. Okay. So you see, like we've got like I've got like a pattern going this way. I've got one going this way. I'm missing one. Why am I missing one here? What one am I missing? Oh, that's not plugged into anything. That's why we're not seeing it. All right, so this one's going to go into there. Now we should see what I was expecting to see. All right, cool. So this is our basic setup that we have that I want to work with as far as our... and this is kind of interesting as it is, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these little colas plants that it's from a picture that I took in Chandler Gardens in Weatherford whenever I was on a trip there a while back. So I'm going to use this to create our little stripe pattern. So let's see, we're going to take a look here. We're just going to create real quickly, just kind of jump in, create some little things here. So we have a nice little pattern going. Let's see. Let's give that one in there, and then maybe we'll throw in this one right here. And again, I'm just using this so that I have like some variations in the color that I can kind of play around with. Now I'm going to switch this from linear over to constant, and then now we've got that sharp little thing, and then we've got like the little different colors here. Because I'm using 4 of them, we can even be mathematically precise. Like I can put in 1/4, 2/4, and 3/4. I could have typed that out if I wanted to, but I just wanted to show you that you could put in a mathematical formula for the value if you wanted to mathematically precisely place these points where you wanted to place them. What we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to duplicate it up here. So we'll duplicate that, drop that in there, delete that one. And then now if we look here, we should have our plaid pattern that we're familiar with. So what we want to do is I want to be able to basically choose which one of these two I'm using. So that's where we're going to use this right here. Now I have this set up. Right now it's on the x-axis. It's on the x, so that's going to be the vertical. And right now I have it set to linear, so we're going to switch this over to constant. And I want this at a 50-50, so we're going to 0.5. And what we're going to do this time, instead of using that in a mix, is we're going to use this as the factor for which one of the stripes is going to choose. All right, so the question becomes then, at what scale does everything kind of work the way I want it to? Well, let's see. I'm going to plug in pi, and I don't have something right. Okay, so I can tell by looking at the pattern right here. Actually, I'll talk in the next video pi, but if you see, like, these stripes are going in opposite directions. So what I need to do is I need to reverse the rotation of this. So we'll just come in here and we'll type that -90. And so now it's going in the opposite direction. Now, something else is not right here. Because that is offset and it doesn't need to be offset. Why is that offset like that? Oh yeah, I think I need a scale here. So we're going to shift a vector math. No. Converter math, and I'm going to use a multiplier, and for a default value we're going to use 0.5, and 0.5 is basically going to take half of whatever our value is, and that is what it's going to use for our scale, on this wave texture. So it's going to take half of our value that's for these two, and it's going to use that as our wave texture for the mask. So basically what we're doing is we're using this as a mask by plugging it into the factor to control, is it doing this wave? Is it doing that wave? And so that's where we wind up with this pattern here. Now, I'm going to adjust the scale here, so let's adjust that up to 10. And now you can see we've got that ripple pattern, just like we wanted. All right, so I'm just going to come over here. I have this pulled away just because like I was trying to clear away some room. So I'm going to plug that into there, and we're going to take this and give it one of our colors. Let's go with the dark purple. I think it's going to look nice on this particular one. And then if we look at our shirt, now we have our ripple pattern on our shirt. And it's all nice. Now, you can always like shift the location of the UVs and stuff to get this to match up a little bit nicer. You can shift the UVs themselves around. You can shift the UV islands to make these match up a little bit better. It's a lot of it's just like playing around, and it's going to vary from pattern to pattern what you would want to do to match this up. But you don't even have to match these up if you do these along the seams like I've done them here. It is not uncommon at all to have these patterns not exactly match up because of the seaming, because of where they're seamed. Sometimes they're done, sometimes they're matched up, sometimes they're not. So either way is perfectly valid. All right, so what I discovered after playing around with this for just a little bit is if we change the scale, so right now we're at 50 at 0.5. If I change the scale to 1 or yeah, okay, 1. So basically we got arrows kind of going up and arrows going down, or arrows are they're all pointing down. This is almost like just a slightly different pattern, right? So if we go 0.25, nope, nope, all right, 2, 1. Okay, so we got your arrows. All right, so here we have our sorry, I'm just playing around with the value here just to see. 1. Okay, so here we got like arrows pointing in different directions. This was not quite what I was expecting to see. But as you kind of start moving this value around, you start kind of getting into some other patterns. So like at this level right here, we're kind of getting into a little bit more of like a hound's tooth type of pattern. And if we go even higher, you start developing into kind of like a checked look for the colors. And if we go even higher, let's say like these lines just kind of get thinner and thinner on this checked pattern. So you kind of get all kinds of different looks, and you can use this as a basis for your plaid as opposed to the overlaid colors like we did before. Both are actually looks I have seen in plaid colors before. So you got this one here where it's like the thin lines. You also have like the different colors where they're overlaid on each other. I was thinking there's another pattern in here. Okay. So if you take your basic ripple pattern and just shift it a little bit, right? So in this case, we start off with 0, right? If I go to 0.2, that's the same, but if I go 0.1, so you have your ripple pattern, but it's offset, and this would be what you would see for like a herringbone type pattern. So these are all different patterns that you see very frequently in the wild. Like as you're going about, you know, you'll see these types of patterns in your everyday life. And I don't think that's going to affect this right here. Yeah, that's going to... The only thing that might affect there is just like what value you're using here to kind of offset things. But, and you can offset them at different values to get different looks. But that's not going to affect this right here, like just using different values there. I can change this to 1. Again, you got the arrows. If I change this to 2, you've got another kind of like look to it. If I change this to 3, you start getting into the hound's tooth. If I go into 4, that's a little variation on the hound's tooth. And if I start going higher and higher with this value, you start getting into more of that checked look. All of which is kind of like interesting patterns that you can use in your different things. And I just kind of did this like with an even pattern, but I've attempted this with offset, with, you know, with patterns that are not even, and come up with some very interesting looks as well. So just some different ways to kind of explore playing around with these values. I would highly suggest, like there's a few values for like where you want to keep it the same. So like this right here works 50-50, right? So you want this color ramp to be 50-50, but this, play around with that value, play around with your scale value, play around with these. Ideally though, I would have these two match as much as you can. If there was a way that I could plug this into there and then, like, you know, have it find some way to share the, you know, have this with only one color ramp instead of having to duplicate all this, that would be great. In the next video, we're gonna take a look at how you can set this up so you can use this from an image file, so that you can save your pattern into an image file that can be tileable, that you can use in other things within Blender or beyond Blender if you wanted to. See you in the next video.